The objective today is to explain how unified communications affects network performance. So not a complex lesson, just one filled with a lot of words. The meanings of these words will probably not be intimidating to you at all, so that's good news. And if you're in a networking class or you're going to take a networking test, some of these topics might come up, and I imagine in this context they will be brought up in a multiple choice format. Okay, so it says here, in brief, UC, as in Unified Communications, in brief, UC has the amazing ability to make you feel like your organization is in the future. It's like living in something you've seen in a sci-fi movie. However, you have to manage these services correctly, or your network performance will feel like something from the Stone Age. So let's step back. What is unified communications? Well, it's all about unifying your communications. Okay, it's a way to get all your devices like a cell phone, office computers, your laptop, even your car itself to unify for your benefit. Not surprisingly, we're probably talking about a business context or a large organization context when we're talking about unified communications. This is where the futuristic stuff starts to feel really future-y. Here's your first example. If you put on your calendar that you have a meeting from 9 to 10, and let's say your mom calls and leaves you a voicemail, that cell phone of yours will first of all not ring because the cell phone knows you're in a meeting. And second, the voicemail will be turned into text since your ears are preoccupied during the meeting, and in its text format, it'll go to your phone. So maybe under the desk, you'll be able to read what the voicemail was saying. But the key there is you would need to put that in your calendar for your computer and for the network to make that connection. There's a pretty good picture of showing people putting the world together. So that's a great example of convenience for you during a meeting. But there can also be this convenience for you when you're driving your car. Maybe the opposite can happen if you get a text while you're driving. Rather than you being distracted and looking down at it, your car, is a part of this network, so it knows you're driving. It'll take those words and it'll turn it into a computer voice, maybe like Siri or Alexa, and it'll read you the text over the speakers. So UC even has the potential to make the world a safer place. Now there are several ways to set this all up. In fact, the fanciness I just described is probably the coolest scenarios I've found regarding UC. So that's the top, that's the apex of its potential. But there are some more common examples you'll find in a UC network. This image to the right is probably showing you that. We can put everything an organization needs on one wire using a PBX server to manage everything from phone calls to computer use. And clearly the phone will have the priority over the computer's attempt to maybe stream a video or send an email or to do FTP, that is a file transfer. People who want to use the phone, they need that priority. Now I'll let you read this Wikipedia definition of UC just to better wrap your mind around the scale these services can exist on. In a nutshell, it talks about unifying the instant messaging application a computer can have. It talks about web and video conferencing. Skype is a popular one. And near the end there, you see it's talking about voicemail, email, even SMS on your cell phone, and even fax. Maybe it's a government organization, then you'll be able to have that ability through a unified communication system. And notice in green it says enterprise. Remember, the word enterprise relates to business. So describing the integration of enterprise communication or business communication, that's where the UC idea or power comes into play. So I want you to, in your own words, tell me what you think unified communications means. To do so, let me point out what I think is the key ingredient to what makes unified communication. And that is a concept of a medium transference, or transference, however you say that word. My example here is that UC allows an individual to send a message on one medium and receive the same communication on another medium. So for example, one can receive a voicemail message and choose to access it through email or cell phone. Now if the sender is online, according to what's called presence information, and they're currently accepting calls, the response can be sent immediately through text, chat, or a video call. Otherwise, it may be sent as a non-real-time message that can be accessed through a variety of media. This is making me think of those old school switchboard operators where they would take in a phone call, and to get that phone call to go to the right place, they would have to physically unplug a wire and then plug it somewhere else. I'd really like to know more about how that actually worked, but that's what I'm saying is a key ingredient to unified communications. The idea that you can have an email and then the medium is changed and it's a voice giving you the words in the email. So I know there are a variety of definitions out there for united communications, but to keep things simple, let's say that a basic definition is this. It is communications integrated to optimize business processes and increase user productivity. Okay, so there are varying definitions for unified communications, but let me point out the point of it. Whatever the definition is, here's the reason they exist. Unified communications integrated to optimize business processes and increase user productivity. Such integration can take many forms, such as users simply adjusting their habits, manual integration as defined by procedures and training, integration of communications into off-the-shelf tools such as Thunderbird, Outlook, Lotus Notes, BlackBerry, Salesforce.com, etc., or purpose-specific integration into customized applications in specific operating departments or in vertical markets such as healthcare. So just simplify that and think, what are the tools that we can use to implement UC? Unified communications? Well, one that jumps out to me is Outlook, because right there I have my calendar, I have my email, I have the ability to take notes, and wherever I log on to Outlook, wherever I'm at, all of that information is right there. I even get little messages about how long it is expecting me to get to work that day based on the traffic. And that brings home the point that unified communications is an evolving set of technologies that automate and unify human and device communications in a common context and experience. So just prepare yourself for the semantics to change, for the definition to change as UC evolves. So let's end the lesson on just hardcore examples. I mentioned presence earlier. The unified communication network will know if you are present, if you're available or not. It says here that knowing where intended recipients are and if they are available in real time is a key component to UC. For example, unified communications technology could allow a user to seamlessly collaborate with another person on a project if the two users are in separate locations. So UC gets rid of the need to be in the same physical location as another person that you want to collaborate with. You're going to hear the word collaborate often with the term unified communication. This slide goes on to say that the user could quickly locate the necessary person that they need to collaborate with by accessing an interactive directory, engage in a text messaging session, and then escalate the session to a voice call or even a video call. And there are services out there already that will allow you to do this. And that last concept is just not difficult to wrap your mind around, that maybe you start by chatting with somebody and you need to escalate that to a phone call. Well, you'll be able to do that. Now for this next one, I always think about Discord, and I spend some good time on Discord in like coding and CTF rooms, or I should say server. I'm used to the old school idea of having chat rooms. Now, used in this matter, the concept of presence often changes. So most people associate this term presence with instant messaging. That is, the status of individuals is identified, but in many business process applications, what is important is finding someone with a certain skill. In these environments, presence identifies available skills or capabilities. This business process approach to integrating UC functionality can result in bottom line benefits that are in order of magnitude greater than those achievable by personal productivity methods alone. So what that paragraph is saying is it's worth a lot of money to large corporations or businesses. Because why? Time is money. So there are a couple terms that are similar but not exactly the same to UC. So you have here what's called a UCC, that is, Unified Communications and Collaborations. And this is a term used to describe the integration of various communication methods with collaboration tools such as a virtual whiteboard, maybe real-time audio and video conferencing. which may include enhanced call control capabilities. Before this fusion of communications and collaboration tools into a single platform, enterprise collaboration service vendors had offered distinctively different solutions. So we're getting into a realm I'm a bit ignorant of. I don't know what that is like. What did the vendors use before? I just don't know. Another term that is similar is Unified Communications Provisioning. And this is the act of entering and configuring the settings for users of phone systems, instant messaging, telepresence, and other collaboration channels. Provisioners refer to this process as making moves, adds, changes, and deletes, or MACDs. So I'll just point out here that provisioning, configuring, settings, these words are all so similar. Though I like to think of those first two as verbs and the last one as a noun. People configure settings, and usually in computer science we're talking about somebody provisioning resources for some sort of dedicated purpose in the future. The last one I have for you here is Unified Communications and Collaboration as a Service. This is sometimes used to describe cloud-based UCC platforms, and we talked about UCC right up here. Here we go, we talked about it right here. So if we throw in a collaboration as a service term, we're talking about things on the cloud, and it says this is compared to premises-based UCC solutions. So on-prem is definitely a networking term. That on-prem is just short for premises, and what that's referring to is like what you physically have on the premises of your business. Terms like cloud-based or the concept of a cloud would mean that it is physically stored somewhere else, whether it's the service or the data we're talking about. And for the sake of this lesson, we don't have to go very much into that. This is just a great diagram for you to wrap your mind around the differences between IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Watch my videos on the cloud to learn more about those. For now, let me end the lesson by giving you a resource. I did a little bit of a Reddit search, and I found this guy saying, hey, I recently landed a job at a company that uses Cisco IP phones and Cisco's UC platform exclusively for their VoIP. Are there any books, videos, tutorials that you would recommend to learning Cisco's ways of doing VoIP? I heard the CCNA collaboration resources suck. Now, a lot of people in the comments say that's not true. I know it to be not true myself. The first person, which has a terrific name, the Packet Thrower. So the first person says, sure, Cisco has collab certifications up to the CCIE level. However, they tend to treat the non-RNS tracks as assumed CCNP RNS level, so testing and real-world experience is needed. Of course, you can still read the books to get insight on how things work without doing the actual tests. So it kind of sounds like that guy is just saying, okay, get ready for your on-the-job training because that's going to be the most important for you to do. So maybe he's encouraging the original poster to just go out there and ask coworkers about how Cisco is using their VoIP stuff. I mean, it's not shameful to take notes when you're talking to these people. It is not a sign that you are an idiot or something. I mean, taking notes is for smart people. I have never met a smart person who thought me taking notes on them was weird. The next guy says, good evening, I'm actually in the same boat. What I'm doing is reading the CICD 2010-60 Cisco press book. And then it says Cisco Saeed on YouTube has a good amount of tutorial as well. Later in the comments, somebody says Packet Tracer actually allows you to set up some very basic CME configurations, including dial peers. Granted, I feel CME is kind of an irrelevant skill anymore. Those small businesses, etc., that can't afford a proper CUCM cluster aren't going to use CME. They'd likely just use a much cheaper VoIP alternative or even a free one. So after a little research, I found out that Cisco Unified CME is a feature-rich, entry-level IP telephony solution that is integrated directly into Cisco iOS software. So we're getting out of the realm of my understanding, but I found a nice diagram on this. CME stands for Cisco Call Manager Express, and eventually I'll go into SIP trunking. So if nothing else, this is just a great foreshadowing of that lesson. Let's go on a quick field trip here because I do like to search for this stuff. You know, my YouTube series is called GREP something. So here, GREP United Communications, what I did is search for this word all over the internet. And I try to just deliver the best things I found to you so you can save some time and learn in a much more relaxed way. So here on a Stack Exchange site called The Workplace, somebody says, how to introduce unified communications in a company. It says, in my company, we're using Skype as a chat tool and Outlook for email reasons. I remember having had a long discussion with a colleague, but I've forgotten if we had the discussion on email or chat, which makes it difficult to search for. One possible solution for such an issue is unified communications, which is a system for unifying all communication channels on one platform. I would like to know about how to introduce this technology in my company, but I have no idea where to begin. Can anybody give me a starting point? And then blah blah blah. Scrolling down to the first two answers, and there's only two of them, and neither of them were upvoted at all. This first answer points out that you won't be able to do unified communications without upper management's willingness to completely embrace the new strategy, as well as discourage uses of the old previous communications. This person says, having gone through the pain of trying to unify communications onto one platform after the company grew past 100 employees, I recommend you bring it up with them now instead of later. It is somewhat doubtful that you'll be able to convince anyone to give up either chat or email, so you're still stuck having to search multiple places even if they're on the same platform. That being said, things like Slack and the brand new Microsoft Teams aspire to unify communications in the way you hope. But getting people to adopt it would be like pulling teeth if you have people in your company who have used email and IM for decades. So that is a great thing to have in a lesson like this for you people studying unified communications and studying networking and other computer concepts. There's just a dose of real world for you right there, so emotionally prepare yourself. The next answer, I think this is particularly important to point out. The person says, the cost of changing this will be high and pretty much not worth the trouble. You're asking a lot of change just for the nice to have, not something you really need. So there you go. That is unified communications in a nutshell. So we're at the end of the lesson. Go ahead and explain how UC can potentially affect network performance.